What if I told you that there is a hidden book, an ancient manuscript so profound, so mysteriously powerful, that it claims to explain in astonishing detail what happens after we die, not in vague symbols or poetic riddles, but in structured stages with startling clarity. A roadmap for the soul's journey beyond the veil. Their cosmic itinerary written not by science nor superstition, but by sages who claim to have seen beyond the final breath. And the most unsettling part, many who have studied it say they remember pieces of it, as if they lived it before. You see, in every corner of our world, death remains the great unknown. We spend our lives running from it, fearing it, pretending it's far away, and yet it waits for us all, with a silence that speaks louder than words. But what if death isn't the end? What if it's a transition, a passage through realms unseen by the physical eye? Across centuries and civilizations, from ancient Egypt to Tibetan monasteries, from Sufi mystics to Gnostic philosophers, whispers of this hidden knowledge have survived. Fragments of truth buried beneath layers of dogma, fear, and forgotten tongues. But one book stands out, a book that dares to unveil the unseen mechanics of the soul's departure, a book that doesn't just theorize, but maps the journey. Known in the East as the Bardo Thodol, and more commonly in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this text has baffled scholars, mystics, and seekers for generations. And yet, it is not alone. Throughout the esoteric traditions of the world, hidden in temple walls, whispered in secret initiations, encoded in symbols, there exists a pattern, a shared language about what awaits us when this life ends. You did not find this video by accident. Something within you is ready to go beyond the veil, not physically but in understanding, in remembrance. You see, the truth about death is not meant to scare you. It is meant to free you. Because when you understand what happens after death, you begin to live differently. You love more deeply, you fear less, you awaken. So, in this video, we will open the gates to a deeper reality. We'll explore the hidden history of sacred texts that describe the afterlife in staggering detail, the philosophical depth behind these teachings, and what they reveal about the nature of the soul. A step-by-step breakdown of what happens to consciousness after the final breath, according to ancient wisdom, the unseen forces that meet us at death, and the decisions the soul must make, and most importantly, how you can prepare, elevate your awareness, and align your spirit while still alive. But be warned, once you understand this truth, there is no going back, for the illusions of fear and separation dissolve, and in their place rises a kind of knowing, an inner remembrance, that death is not a punishment, but a return, not darkness, but a bridge. So I invite you now to put aside the noise of the world. This is not the kind of knowledge you skim or multitask through. This is sacred ground. Whether you are deeply spiritual or simply curious, whether you've lost someone or fear the unknown, this message is for you. As we begin this journey together, let your mind stay open and your heart stay still. For in the stillness, ancient truths come alive again. We are not here to speculate. We are here to remember. The soul does not fear death. Only the ego does. Long before modern religions, before science had language to describe consciousness, before psychology labeled the mind, there were seekers, quiet ones, watchers, scribes of the unseen. They were the mystics, the initiates, the prophets, and the priestesses. They sat in silence. They fasted. They stared into flame and star, into the eyes of the dying. And what they saw, they recorded, but not in ink and logic, in symbol, in allegory, in myth. What we now call the afterlife was once known as the Great Passage, the returning, the final initiation. And the book we speak of, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is not merely a guide for the dead. It is in truth a manual for the living. But this idea of death as a journey did not begin with Tibet. It echoes across civilizations. Let us first visit ancient Egypt, where the soul's voyage was meticulously documented in the Papyrus of Ani, better known as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Here, death was not a collapse, but a trial. The deceased would stand before the god Anubis, and their heart would be weighed against the feather of Mayat, goddess of truth, balance, and cosmic law. If the heart was heavier, filled with lies, greed, or unresolved deeds, it would be devoured by Amit, a monstrous beast of oblivion. But if the heart was light, the soul would pass into the field of reeds, a paradise mirroring the Nile's bounty. But what's most intriguing, they believed the soul contained many parts, the Ka, Ba, and Ak among them. Each had to be guided, protected, purified. The physical body was preserved, not to cling to life, but to offer stability to the soul's transition. They prepared tombs not as prisons, but as portals. Death was not feared, it was rehearsed. In ancient Greece, those initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries and the Orphic mysteries were taught sacred truths about death through rites so secretive, revealing them was punishable by death itself. These teachings centered around Persephone, goddess of the underworld, and the descent of Orpheus to retrieve his beloved Eurydice. But these were more than myths. They were metaphors for the soul's descent into the physical realm and its ascent back into the divine. Plato, a philosopher steeped in these teachings, spoke of the soul's immortality with certainty. In his Phaedrus and Republic, he described the soul as something eternal, entering body after body, learning, forgetting, remembering. The famous allegory of the cave wasn't just about knowledge, it was about awakening before death, so that when death came, one would not be afraid of the light. In India, the ancient Vedas and Upanishads described the soul's journey as the path of the Atman, the innermost self. They spoke of karma not as punishment, but as momentum, that what you do, feel, and believe shapes the subtle energy of the soul. At death, that momentum carries you either to rebirth or to liberation, moksha, the freedom from the cycle of reincarnation. The Bhagavad Gita, a sacred Hindu scripture, has Krishna tell Arjuna, "The soul is neither born, nor does it ever die. It is eternal, indestructible, and timeless." These were not poetic musings. These were statements of reality, meant to remind the seeker that life is a chapter, not a book. Now we return to the book at the heart of our journey, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Bardo Thodol, which means liberation through hearing in the intermediate state. This text is not meant to be read casually. It was traditionally whispered into the ears of the dying, so that as their consciousness detached from the physical body, it would hear the sacred words and remember the way. The Tibetan teachings describe three bardos, or in-between states. The Chikai Bardo, the moment of death and the dissolution of the body, elements. The Chonyid Bardo, visions of light and deities, projections of one's own consciousness. The Sidpa Bardo, the search for rebirth influenced by karma and intention. This journey is said to unfold over 49 days. During this time, the soul encounters terrifying illusions or blissful visions. But here's the key. They are all projections of the mind. The teachings emphasize that if the soul recognizes the visions as its own projections, it can awaken, achieve liberation, and not be pulled back into rebirth. This is where the mystery becomes practical, because what the Bardo teaches is that our experience after death is shaped by our mind right now. Your fears, attachments, beliefs, they don't vanish at death, they manifest. In the early Christian and Gnostic traditions, texts like the Pistis Sophia and the Gospel of Thomas offer a radically different vision of the afterlife than modern doctrine. The soul, they taught, was a spark from the divine realm, the pleroma trapped in material illusion. Upon death, the soul had to pass through the archons, rulers of the lower realms. Only those who had gnosis, true knowledge, could ascend. And what was that knowledge? That the divine spark was never separate from the source. To remember one's divine origin was to break free from the cycles of reincarnation and illusion. The Gnostics viewed Jesus not as a savior from sin, but as a revealer of the hidden path home. Across cultures, languages, and millennia, these teachings converge on a mysterious truth: that death is not the end, but a transition, that consciousness does not dissolve, but transforms, that the state of your mind and soul in life directly shapes your passage after death, that remembering who you truly are, a soul, not a body, is the ultimate preparation. But this truth was not meant for the masses. It was protected, encoded, hidden, because power in the wrong hands becomes destruction. The book we are exploring, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is not alone. It is a voice in a divine choir of wisdom that whispers, "You have died before, you will die again, but you are not your death. What lies ahead is not darkness, but decision, not punishment, but perception." And as we move forward, we'll begin to unlock the stages this mysterious book reveals, what exactly happens at the moment of death, and how your soul navigates the realms that follow. Because to understand what happens when we die is to understand how to live with meaning, courage, and peace. The body becomes still, the heart ceases, the brain flickers its last sparks, but you, the real you, are not gone. In that first moment after death, a strange clarity arises. Time stretches, sounds distorted, colors shift. This is the first stage described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Chikhai Bardo, the moment of death itself. It begins with what the text calls the dissolution of the elements. The body, composed of earth, water, fire, and air, begins to release each element back to the universe. And with them, a corresponding inner experience unfolds. Earth dissolves into water. The body feels heavy, limbs collapse, a sense of sinking. Water dissolves into fire. Saliva dries, sweat ceases. One feels immense heat or cold. Fire dissolves into air. Breath slows, vision dims. Air dissolves into consciousness. The final breath leaves, and the physical form is no longer your vessel. But here's the mystery. At this point, something remarkable happens. The clear light appears. It is described as blindingly brilliant, beyond all earthly sight. A luminosity that is not light as we know it, but a radiance of pure awareness. This light is not something external, it is the true nature of your consciousness. Bardo Thodol says this is the most important moment of all. If the soul recognizes this clear light, realizes it is one with it, it merges with the divine, liberation, no more rebirth. The wheel stops turning, but most do not recognize it, because the ego, which clings to form, identity, and fear, panics. It can't comprehend formless bliss, and so the soul turns away, pulled into the second bardo, Chonyit Bardo, the bardo of reality. Now the journey becomes surreal. In the Chonyit Bardo, the soul begins to witness extraordinary visions, what the book calls the peaceful and wrathful deities. But these are not gods in the external sense. They are manifestations of your own consciousness. The peaceful deities, brilliant, loving, glowing with serenity, are the qualities of your higher self: compassion, clarity, wisdom. The wrathful deities, terrifying, monstrous, full of chaos, are your suppressed fears, guilt, attachments, and shadow. These visions are not meant to judge you, but to mirror you. And here lies one of the deepest teachings of the text. If you recognize them as your own mind as projections, you are free. Let's pause and consider that. The visions you see after death, heavenly or horrific, are shaped by your own inner world. If you've lived in anger, fear, or greed, your afterlife experience begins with those energies. If you've cultivated presence, compassion, and detachment, you will recognize the visions as temporary illusions, passing clouds. Many fear the concept of judgment after death. In the Tibetan tradition, there is no external judge. Instead, there is clarity. You will see your life replayed, not as punishment, but as understanding. You will feel what others felt because of your actions. You will understand the causes you've sown and their effects. This is karma, not reward or revenge, but cause and effect. And in this moment the soul chooses, not with logic but with vibration, whether to awaken or to follow the pull of its attachments. For example, the soul attached to power may hallucinate realms of status or control and get trapped in them. The soul bound by fear may flee from the light and wander dark realms, self-created. The soul that sees through all illusions may relax, let go, and return to the source. The bardo is like a lucid dream, amplified to the infinite, and most souls don't realize they're dreaming. For those who do not awaken in the Chonyit Bardo, the journey continues into the Sidpa Bardo, the realm where rebirth is sought. Here the soul becomes desperate, drawn toward light, sounds, or forms. These are not divine gates, but wombs calling the soul into another incarnation. The Tibetan text warns, "Be not attracted to the bright light of the womb. Recognize it as an illusion." Why? Because every pull, every desire, every attachment, no matter how comforting, leads back into the cycle of birth and death. The Sidpa Bardo is both mysterious and haunting. The soul begins to lose clarity. The memories of the former life fade. The karmic momentum chooses a new body. And just before entering, forgetfulness sets in. The soul begins again. And most never remember the journey at all. All of this may seem abstract. But here's the secret. The bardos are not just after death. They happen in life too. When we sleep and dream, we enter a kind of bardo. In deep meditation, when the ego dissolves, we glimpse the clear light. When we go through trauma, loss, or massive life changes, we cross through states of death and rebirth. Even transitions like divorce, career loss, spiritual awakening, they all carry the echoes of these sacred stages. This knowledge was never just about the afterlife. It was a mirror for inner life, a guidebook for navigating the mind, a reminder that heaven and hell are not places, but states of being. And those who understand this begin to live differently. They stop fearing death. They stop clinging to illusions. They see the sacred in everything. Let me offer a metaphor. Imagine the soul as a wave rising from the ocean. It forms, it travels, it crashes upon the shore, and dissolves back into the sea. The wave was never separate from the ocean. Its form changed, its journey was real, but its essence was always water. Death is the wave returning, not vanishing, not ending, but reuniting. When we understand this, our fear turns into reverence. Our anxiety becomes trust, and our life becomes more focused, not on escaping death, but preparing for return. One of the most haunting and tender revelations in the Tibetan Book of the Dead is this. Most souls forget, not just their past lives, but the entire journey through the bardos. The clear light, the visions, the choice points, all of it, lost in the fog of rebirth. Why? Because the ego, so trained to cling, cannot withstand the full truth of formlessness. It seeks comfort, familiarity, form. And so, when it comes time to choose liberation or return, the pull toward sensation, memory, and identity becomes overwhelming. But here lies the deeper secret. We are not supposed to forget. The book was never meant for the dead alone. It was a message to the living. Recognize the dream while you are still dreaming. If you wait until death to remember who you are, it may be too late. But if you awaken now, if you learn to recognize illusion, embrace presence, and train your awareness, you change the story. Because what happens in death mirrors what happens in life. And here's the most practical and profound insight. Your spiritual practice is your preparation. Every time you meditate, you rehearse for the clear light. Every time you face fear with awareness, you disarm the wrathful deities within. Every time you detach from craving, you loosen the karmic cords that pull you toward unconscious rebirth. The Bardo teachings aren't morbid, they're liberating. They teach us that the soul is not judged, it is simply reflected. And if you don't like the reflection, you have the power right now to polish the mirror. Right now, in this moment, you are in a bardo, a transition between your past and your future. This life is one long unfolding passage between arrivals and departures. The question isn't, will you die? The question is, will you awaken before you do? Because when you do, death becomes not the end, but the great remembering. If the teachings of the bardos have stirred something in you, an ancient recognition, a strange clarity, then know this, it's not enough to understand what happens after death. You must prepare for it now, because preparation is not about fear, it's about awareness, about alignment, about living in such a way that you do not fear dying because you've already awakened. Let's now move from the theoretical into the practical. How can we apply the sacred teachings of the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the esoteric wisdom across ancient traditions to our modern lives? How do we begin living like we remember who we are? Meditation isn't just about stress relief. It is the art of conscious dying, the practice of dissolving the ego without physical death. Every time you sit, close your eyes, and detach from thoughts, you simulate the dissolution of the elements. The body relaxes, earth element lets go. The breath slows, air element surrenders. The desire fades. Fire and water begin to dissolve. The mind settles. The ego steps back, and the soul steps forward. Practice. Start with just 10 minutes a day. Sit still, eyes closed, back straight. Breathe in and out, slowly. Observe every thought, but don't attach to any. Repeat inwardly, I am not this thought. I am not this fearful. I am aware. In this stillness, you begin to glimpse the clear light. It may come as peace, silence, or even emptiness, but that emptiness is not lacking. It is fullness without form. It is the space the soul remembers. The Tibetan monks considered dreams as bardos, realms where the ego is less dominant and the soul can rehearse death consciously. Lucid dreaming, being aware while dreaming, was a sacred training. Why? Because in a dream you face symbols, fears, projections, just like in the Chonyid Bardo. To become lucid in a dream is to practice recognizing illusion, the exact skill needed after death. Practice. Keep a dream journal beside your bed. Each morning, write anything you remember, no matter how small. During the day, ask yourself often, am I dreaming right now? This habit carries into sleep, helping you become aware within the dream. If you awaken inside your dreams, you will awaken after death. We all carry unresolved emotions, anger, guilt, jealousy, fear. These are not flaws. They are echoes of past wounds, unmet needs, and forgotten traumas. But if ignored, they become the wrathful deities after death, terrifying apparitions that chase the soul in the bardos. Shadow work is the practice of facing these parts now, in life. Because what is not healed in life becomes magnified in death. Practice. Take 15 minutes of quiet time. Write down, what emotions or memories am I avoiding? Choose one. Sit with it. Don't analyze. Don't fight it. Speak gently to it like a child. I see you. You are safe. You are allowed to exist. In time, the fear dissolves, and what once terrified you becomes your guide. The pull toward rebirth isn't caused by sin or punishment. It's caused by attachment, the desire to own, to control, to relive, to redo. And yet all sages agree, the only way to be free is to let go, not of love, but of clinging. Practice. Walk through your home. Pick up objects that hold emotional charge, photos, souvenirs, gifts. Ask yourself, does this define who I am? Can I release this identity? Try giving away or storing items that are tied to a false self-image. Then move inward. Reflect on relationships. Are you holding on to someone out of love or fear? Practice sending them silent blessings. I release you. I wish you freedom. I choose peace. Every act of release in life is an act of liberation after death. One of the deepest teachings of the Tibetan text is this: whatever arises in the mind is projection. Recognize it and be free. This isn't just for death, it's for every moment. We suffer in life because we believe our thoughts. We chase illusions. We run from pain. We forget that we are the awareness behind the mind, not the mind itself. Practice. In daily life, use presence anchors. When drinking tea, say silently, I am here, this is sacred. When speaking, feel your breath and body. Are you present? When a thought arises, observe it like a cloud, let it pass. Presence is your sword in the bardos. The more present you are now, the more lucid you will be then. The Tibetan masters prepared for death long before their final days. They planned who would read the bardo passages. They wrote final messages. They blessed their space. You don't need to fear death to plan for it. You only need to remember you are more than this body. Practice. Write a letter to your future self as you transition. What do you want to remember? Don't be afraid. The light is you. Go into it. Let go of the body. You are eternal. Create a small altar or space with symbols that connect you to spirit. Crystals, sacred texts, incense, flowers. Choose a loved one or trusted friend to read the Bardo teachings aloud if you cannot. Record a message to be played after your passing that reminds others that you are free. What you prepare in life echoes in eternity. This may sound strange, but many mystics spoke of dying before death. Jesus said, unless a grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. To die before dying is to let go of ego fully. You can practice this in silence, in surrender, in devotion, in ecstatic joy or grief, in fasting or in stillness, in any moment that strips away all you thought you were, and in that nakedness you glimpse the real. Practice. Sit in the dark with no distractions. Breathe deeply. Visualize your body dissolving layer by layer. Ask, if I am not this body, who am I? Sit in the void. Don't run from it. Let awareness expand until there is only light. This is a rehearsal. This is a memory. It is normal to fear death. The ego is designed to preserve itself, but the soul has no fear, only longing to return, to merge, to rest. The more you trust, the more peace you will carry into the transition. And remember, you've done this before. The Bardo Thodol and countless esoteric traditions do not teach death as something new, but as a journey you've taken many times. Now, you're simply being given the chance to walk it consciously. Somewhere deep within you, you already knew. Not just that life is temporary, but that it is sacred. Not just that death comes, but that it unveils. Not just that the soul survives, but that it has walked this path before. This message was not new. It was ancient, and it waited in silence, in symbols, in dreams, and until now. The Tibetan Book of the Dead was never meant to be just a book. It was meant to be a mirror, a guide, not for the dead, but for those still breathing, still fearing, still wondering. What lies beyond? And now, you've walked with its teachings, not as a tourist in mystery, but as a seeker of truth. You've glimpsed the sacred stages of the soul's journey. You've understood that the end of the body is not the end of you, and most importantly, you've remembered that how you live shapes how you die. Let us pause and gather what we've uncovered. At the moment of death, the elements dissolve, and the clear light appears. Recognizing this, light is liberation, a return to our true nature. If not recognized, the soul enters the bardo of visions where it sees the peaceful and wrathful projections of its own mind. These are not punishments, but mirrors. And in each moment, the soul has a choice: wake up or be pulled deeper. Then comes the bardo of becoming, where the pull of karma, desire, and attachment draws the soul into a new life, unless it recognizes the illusion and lets go. These aren't abstract ideas. They are reflections of our inner life right now. The fears you avoid, the attachments you carry, the presence you cultivate, all of it shapes the landscape of your next becoming. You are already walking through a bardo. Every breath is a crossing. Most people live their entire lives in fear of the unknown. But you now carry a map, not a rigid doctrine, but a flexible light, a spiritual compass to help you navigate both the mysteries within and the mysteries beyond. You understand now. That life is not about avoiding death. It is about preparing for a reunion. Reunion with the divine, with the source, with the truth of who you've always been. And what you do with this knowledge, which matters. You can choose to forget, or you can choose to remember again and again until remembrance becomes your natural state. Before we end, I want you to hear this. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your fears, your possessions, or even your body. You are the witness. You are eternal. You are the awareness behind the play, the actor and the audience. When the curtains fall, when the final breath is taken and the world becomes silent, you will still be there. And in that moment, may you remember these words. Do not be afraid. You are returning home. The light is not separate from you. You are the light. Until then, live wisely. Love deeply, detach gently, and awaken daily. For death is not your enemy. It is the final invitation to remember that you were never separate from eternity in the first place. Let this not be the end of a video, but the beginning of your journey. Go back and explore these teachings. Sit in silence, write your reflections, practice the techniques, speak to your soul, and when the moment comes, whether tonight in a dream or in many years as your breath slows, may you walk the bardos not with fear, but with a smile, because you've already practiced the path. And you know now, death is not the opposite of life. It is the other side of the same truth. If this message resonated with you, if it stirred something ancient within your heart, then share it, not for numbers, not for fame, but to awaken others, to help them remember. Let us form a circle of souls who live not in fear of death, but in reverence of life. And if you'd like to go deeper into these teachings, into the mystery, into the unseen layers of existence, subscribe. Join us, walk the path, because the great work of the soul has only just begun.